Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show on the Belly Up Sports Network. Week number 10 is where we sit right now. I still cannot believe we're that far into the season already, but hey, we are. I'm Vince Stover, host of the Sports Stove Football Show. Next to me is Kevin Wilson. He's the senior writer of bellyupsports.com. How you doing, Kev?
I'm doing great. It's been a really fantastic sports weekend here, and Dodgers won somehow, Seahawks won, and that's half of my flag behind me. So
Yeah.
I'm quite pleased and always pleased to be here.
Yeah, and next to Kevin is Brian Germinaro. He's the co-host of the Third and 10 podcast, as well as a writer at bellyupsports.com. And Brian, how you doing, man? Your Notre Dame boys are in the top 10 in the college football playoff.
They're in the top 10. They're in the driver's seat for a playoff spot, which is great. But, of all the crazy football news I heard today, the craziest was that Tom Brady cloned his dog. I didn't know that was possible. How? How did he do that? I need answers.
That's when you have way too much time on your hands.
I must have way too much time on my hands, too, because I've been trying to research this thing and cannot figure out how they did this thing. The closest I got is Jurassic Park.
Oh, no.
Well, we haven't cured cancer, but we figured out how to clone Tom Brady's dog. So we must be making some progress in the world. But
I mean, we have to be.
Yeah. Well, I will have some takes on Notre Dame, but I'm going to save those for my Thursday show and the rest of the college.
Make sure you because the big game this weekend is in the state of Texas.
Yes.
And that's BYU and Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So just so you know.
Yep. We'll discuss it all on Thursday in the college football world. And but we're talking fantasy football. We ended the trade deadline today. We're going to talk about that. We've got some other news to discuss. We've got our starts and sits, our waiver wire ads, our beat the bot competition. Someone finally got in the win column this week, so we will of course discuss that. So let's get things started today with our lead block. All right, we'll kick the show off talking about the trade deadline, specifically those trades that impact fantasy, which were very few and far between in this trade deadline after all the talk of Chris Olave and Breece Hall and all these other offensive names. We had receiver names flying left and right, some tight end names out there. We basically had two players, and Rashid Shaheed and Jacoby Myers, that switch teams here at the deadline that make an immediate fantasy impact in some way, shape, or form. So let's start there, Kevin, and let's go to Seattle. Rashid Shaheed goes from New Orleans to Seattle. JSN has been phenomenal this year in Seattle. Sam Darnold's been really good. The run game's been iffy. And even the rookie tight end, Arroyo's been good out there right now. But you got to be pretty excited about Shaheed coming to Seattle. And if you're a fantasy manager with Rashid Shaheed on your team, how do you think that lines up?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see exactly, because I was all prepared to go on record as saying Torrey Horton is the guy that you want to pick up and start this week. And then they make this trade. So it's going to be interesting to see who is wide receiver 2 and who is wide receiver 3 in this. And so Shaheed, he is number 26 in scoring for wide receivers. And he has the 4th worst quarterbacks rating throwing to him.
Yeah.
So this definitely boosts him. And I think, as I was big on Cooper Kupp coming into this year, but I think the marriage is over with that. He can still play a valuable role. His leadership behind the scenes is something that's not been talked about, but that's not neither here nor there when fantasy is concerned. So I think this is a big boost for him. And it's going to be, like I said, I don't know who's going to be number 2 here. We're going to find out. It's probably going to be him.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then there's all kinds of fantasy implications here because Sam Darnold is being He threw 3 incompletions the other night. That's how dominant he's been.
Yeah.
And so anything that you could do to help that out, I'm fully behind. And this is one of the guys that we spoke of that was going to be on the move. So we got this one right.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what's going on. I really like this. I'm excited about it. I'm just not real clear on what the pecking order is. So we're going to have to see on that.
Yeah. Brian, who do you think gets the biggest boost from this trade when it comes to Sam Darnold, JSN, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton, Rashid Shaheed? Who do you think gets the best fantasy bump because of this?
Oh, I think it's Sam Darnold easily because now he's got more weapons to throw to. The defenses will be stretched thin. They can no longer double team JSN. And if they do double team him, that's going to leave either Shaheed or Kupp open. So more open passes, more open looks for him to move the ball downfield, score touchdowns. And I really think after that, it's Shaheed because he's being paired up again with Clint Kubiak, who was his OC last year. And before he went down, he was having a pretty good year, 20 catches, almost 400 yards, a few touchdowns. Like Kubiak knows his strengths, knows how to work him. And I think he could be a week 10 immediate impact for them if he's playing because we don't know with playbooks and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But once he's in that lineup, he's going to make an immediate impact. So I think it's Sam Darnold and then Shaheed's a close second.
Yeah, and I think, that playbook is easier considering that he's familiar,
right.
already. That helps out a lot. Let's turn the table a little bit. How much does this hurt JSN, if at all, having Shaheed in there, Kevin?
I don't think it hurts him even a little bit because they've been trying to figure out a way to put the clamps on this guy and haven't been able to figure it out. And so if you can only put so many resources on him because like Brian said, now they've got Shaheed over there. They've got resources. They're going to have to block, and guard somebody. And so I think this is going to do absolutely nothing for him because he's such a great wide receiver. He's leading the NFL by over 100 yards receiving. I think that continues. And I'm really surprised, and we talked about this yesterday on the Seahawks Sessions show, because the running game was supposed to be the catalyst behind the Seahawks team, and it has not been that.
Yeah, right.
And so the passing game is what it's been, and it's gonna get even better. And so if you've got JSN, which I do in one of my fantasy teams, so I'm all down for this.
What about you, Brian? You think this hurts JSN or anybody, as far as a pretty big impact negatively?
I mean, the only person that would impact negatively would be Troy Horton because he's going to take his role. So, I mean, Horton went from being maybe a waiver wire pickup this week to someone that's, is not going to have any value unless you're in a dynasty league. Cooper Kupp, I can see a little bit, but not that badly. He hasn't been great this year, so I wouldn't be too concerned about the other Seahawks receivers.
Yeah, looking at the Seahawks, you got JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba has 58 catches. The next guy is Cooper Kupp at 24.
Yeah,
so it's a pretty big drop off.
Right. He didn't even play this past on Sunday night.
Right. Barner's next at 21. Then you got Arroyo at 13, Horton at 13, and Walker out of the backfield with 10. So I think Shaheed comes in. I immediately becomes wide receiver 2 on this team. And I was kind of bummed because I was going to say Darnold as my biggest bump for a player, but Brian stole it. So but I'm with it. And I've been on the Sam Darnold train. I have been on the Seattle train this year as well. And I have JSN in a couple leagues and it has been just marvelous. And I'm interested to see if it helps the run game at all. I'm surprised they didn't do more to address the run game in Seattle with the trade deadline. But getting Shaheed, and they had to give up was it a third and a fourth or a fourth and a fifth?
Fourth and fifth.
You got that written down. Yes, fourth and fifth round picks.
Yeah.
And 2026. So minimal impact, except for the Seahawks because they seem to be able to make fourth and fifth round picks.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, Giants didn't do it. I was so mad at Giants didn't do it. That's such a reasonable price for him. Go get him.
Right.
That's the
So
thing I
minimal
always come
impact
to.
anywhere else. So
The thing I always come to with these trades is I always go back to the Randy Moss trade when he went to New England. And Favre wanted him in Green Bay. Packers didn't. And when they traded him, you're like, why didn't we give up that draft pick? Like, we would have easily given. Now, would they have traded him? You know, who knows? You don't know all those things. But at the end of the day, the deal is you don't know what all was offered. You don't know how those conversations went. I'm sure there were other teams that offered something similar at the very least. The report was they were asking for a third. They didn't get that, but they got a fourth and a fifth, and that, grades out to a third basically as well. So good for Seattle. I think it's a very good thing for them. A very tight race in the NFC West. And I think that definitely bolsters Seattle. And it gives you that extra safety cushion if something does happen to JSN. They're not the same player, but Shaheed's very talented, and I think it's a great pickup for them. Jacoby Myers, lots of talk about him getting moved. He finally does. He goes to Jacksonville, and I don't know. This was a head scratcher for me in a lot of ways. But Brian, what are your thoughts on the Jacoby Myers to Jacksonville trade?
Well, first off, I'm happy Jacoby Myers is finally out of Vegas. That was a terrible spot for him. Now, he didn't go to a much better situation in Jacksonville, but, at least there's Trevor Lawrence, who hopefully can maybe find that Clemson quarterback in him. I don't think he will, but maybe he was. He should have the opportunity with, Travis Hunter being injured, Brian Thomas being inconsistent this year. So there is a role for him on this team to make a big impact. So I'm interested to see if the two of them can build a chemistry pretty fast.
Yeah, and what was it? Washington that had another big week this past week,
Yeah.
and it just didn't seem like the biggest need. And I'm not sure how much it moves the needle for Jacksonville as far as the season goes.
No.
And then fantasy-wise, as a fantasy manager, you're going, I really wish he would have gone somewhere else, if you've got Jacoby Myers, just because Lawrence has been fine, but he hasn't been great at the same time. Kevin, your thoughts on Myers and the Jacksonville fit?
Well, I'm sure this is not what Myers had in mind when he was saying trade me. But I think it's going to be because Jacksonville needed to do something because they've been hurt. And we talked last week, Brian Thomas is a scary and not in a good way player this year. And iffy and hurt and now it's where, Hunter is not going to be there. He's on IR now. So this is going to help Jacksonville as a team, and it can't do anything but to boost Trevor Lawrence. Now, how much is the question?
Right.
But I think that if Jacksonville had any ideas of staying relevant as it is in that division, they needed to address the wide receiver position. And anything other than having Smith as your quarterback has to be a boost. Anything.
Yeah.
Any of us three would have been a boost.
Probably.
So I think that if you have him on your fantasy team, it's not the best if he had gone to another team that had a better quarterback, but it's certainly better to me than what he had going on.
All right, here's a trivia question for you guys. Jacksonville has 9 passing touchdowns this season to 8 players. So everyone has 1 touchdown, except for one guy has 2. Do you know who the guy in Jacksonville with 2 touchdowns is?
Well, it must not be the obvious guy because you're asking the question.
It's tight end Hunter Long. Has 2 touchdowns for Jacksonville.
You could have tortured me to death, and I would have never came up with that.
Strange, the starting tight end, does not have any touchdowns.
Well, he's on the injured list, so
right.
Yeah.
So Thomas, Hunter, Parker Washington, De'Ami Brown, Travis Etienne, Tim Patrick, and Bayshul Tootin have 1 touchdown. Hunter Long has 2. So you look at it and you go, I do think it's better than the situation in Vegas. And I do think Jacksonville is going to stay competitive in the division to a degree. But now I'm worried about targets. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. has 60 targets, only 30 catches. And the next guy is Travis Hunter with 45 targets. So, and Parker Washington has 44 targets. So Washington's playing well. You do have some guys, dinged up a little bit. I'm interested to see how Myers fits, off the bat and how long it takes him to kind of adjust as well and be, how profitable it will be in the fantasy world. I've got my questions. Let's just put it that way on that one as well.
We all agree this is a short-term thing. Like, I don't expect Myers to be in Jacksonville next season.
No, I don't either. And it's going to take a little bit more adjustable time than the guy that we just talked about, who's stepping into offensive coordinator who he knows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to take a little bit more time, but when you're in Vegas, right? And you should be happy, I guess, if you're in Vegas for the most part. But
I've heard big stories.
Yeah, and you've got a quarterback that's throwing 37 interceptions.
Yeah,
you've got to be happy to have anybody else as your quarterback. And I'm sorry to say that about the former Seahawk, but it's just the way it is.
All right, let me ask you guys this question. The only two offensive skill players they got moved, other than those guys, John Mechie went to the Jets, and A.D. Mitchell went to the Jets. Two wide receivers that have done nothing in their current setting. Mechie was traded from Houston to Philadelphia earlier. Now he goes from Philadelphia to New York. New York has all kinds of injury issues as well. They've got quarterback issues also. But I'm curious, is there any optimism on either of those guys to say, well, at the end of the day, really all they had was Wilson and maybe Taylor at tight end, but they got to throw the ball to somebody. So does a change of scenery help in any way either of these guys' fantasy value? Kevin?
The easy answer to this question is no.
No. Yeah.
It does nothing at all for either.
And Brian, you're in agreement with that.
Yeah, look who's starting the football. No offense to Tyrod Taylor, like he just gets injured a lot, and Justin Fields is a running back with a decent arm.
Oh boy. All right. For what it's worth, I will say this. I think that Mitchell has an opportunity, and I'll leave it at that, an opportunity to have some fantasy value. Some. Again, change of play. He was buried, and the Colts receivers are good. The three guys above him, very good. I think he actually was probably 5 on that list in Indianapolis. But sometimes a guy like that, with the speed that he has, the athleticism that he has, if the offensive coordinator get creative, which is probably not going to happen in New York, there's potential for him to find some value. But I'm with you guys. If I had to bet on it, I would say no. Nothing worth writing home about for either of those.
Especially on that team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You throw him with Patrick Mahomes, then we're talking a whole different story.
Oh yeah.
But they're not with Patrick Mahomes. Okay, and then let's see here. We're going to talk about the other moves in the next segment, the defensive moves and things like that. One last thing I want to hit here is there's a new starting quarterback in Arizona. Jacoby Brissett gets named the starter. I would say that overall, Trey McBride, owners are pretty happy about this move. Maybe even Marvin Harrison Jr. fans, or owners as well. I want to know what happens to Kyler Murray. Like, is this it? Like, is he done now in Arizona? Obviously he's there, and if Brissett gets hurt, which very well could happen, he's back in. But have we watched the end of Kyler Murray as a fantasy quarterback option, let alone an NFL quarterback option? Brian?
I definitely think as the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, he's done, because this was coming regardless if Brissett had played well on Monday night or not. It felt like it was coming where they had to just clean house with everybody and just kind of start fresh. I think Murray has shown enough flashes that some team will take a shot at him this offseason, give him that 1-year prove-it contract, and hope that Murray's able to strike, find lightning in the bottle like guys like Sam Darnold and, Daniel Jones have.
Interesting. All right, Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting to me when we talk about Marvin Harrison, because the other night on Monday Night Football was the first time in his career that he had 6 or more catches. That is an indictment of Kyler Murray. Big time that this guy, this immense talent, took this long to catch 6 passes. It's not like, we're talking 10 or any of that other stuff.
Yeah.
JSN catches 6 passes sometimes in a half. And so I think this is, in the short term, this is going to work out. But we've talked about this, like Jacoby Brissett was a backup for a reason. Most backups are a backup for a reason. They go out in one game, maybe 2. They show out, and then people get tape on them, and then it goes right down the toilet.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and especially when you consider he did this against the Cowboys, that doesn't even count to me. And so it's really interesting because their next game is in Seattle this Sunday. And it's a whole different scenario going up against the Seattle defense, which is the top 10 defense.
Yeah.
And so if you're sitting there and you're going, yay, Jacoby, you better get ready for a rough ride because it's going to come down. It's going to crash down this weekend. And enjoy it while you have it. And because except for the tight end, because quarterbacks like tight ends.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see this as going to be having any long-term success.
Yeah, I'm looking at Kyler Murray, and I'm thinking teams like Atlanta as a possibility next season for him if Penix doesn't figure things out. Miami is an interesting option there as well. Pittsburgh, a team that's probably going to need a quarterback next year. Those kinds of teams is the teams I look at. They're not going to be drafting crazy high. Why not take a shot on a Kyler Murray or something like that? But nonetheless, all right.
It depends on how much of his, because he's got a contract.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
Who's going to eat that contract?
Probably the Cardinals.
I'm sure they will. They're going to have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get him moved.
All right. Very good. Let's head to segment 2. I like it. Good job, guys. Here we go. Cover 2. All right, so fantasy impact, not a ton of great trades, but there were a lot of trades that actually impact fantasy. It's just kind of harder to discuss on the defensive side of things because you're looking at teams like the Colts, for instance, not great against receivers this year. They just added Sauce Gardner. So that's going to impact fantasy in a way for sure. Lots of trades. We had just one offensive lineman get moved, and Trevor.
Yeah.
He went to the Chargers, which is actually a really, really good pickup, I think, for
I think so. And if you want to talk offense just a little bit longer, I think this is a great trade because Alt is now out for the season. And so I think they needed some help on their offensive line. And so they made this move. I think this kind of boosts them back to where we thought they might be.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, their offensive line was threatening to derail that whole operation. So when it comes to the Chargers, if you have any of them, you can have some confidence now, I think.
Lots of defensive guys go. On the edges, Keon White goes to San Francisco. Jermont Jones goes to Baltimore. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka goes to Chicago. Jalen Phillips to Philadelphia. Just make me throw up in my mouth. And then I guess those are the guys on the edge. Quinnen Williams to Dallas. Mozzie Smith to the Jets. I'm missing somebody else that I can't find right now. But nonetheless, let's talk about Jalen Phillips real quick to Philadelphia. It's the price. I look at it and go, they got him for that. Like, come on, somebody else should have went out there and offered something just a little bit better and not let them go to Philadelphia. I mean, why are we doing this? But Jalen Phillips to Philadelphia for very, very cheap. Brian, you're in the East as a fan. How do you feel about this?
Oh, I absolutely hate it. Like, why do we keep letting Howie Roseman get away with it? It seems like every single year in the draft, he gets the steal. He signs the steal for agency. I mean, like, it's credit to him to, trusting his gut and, kind of, zigging where everyone else is zagging. Like, good for him. But, can someone else please step up so all these great talented players stop going to the Phillies defense and hurting Jackson Dart?
And what's interesting is what they did here. They also acquired Jair Alexander, who has, shunned himself now off of 2 teams. Green Bay, he was a problem in the locker room. He goes to Baltimore, plays a couple of games, ends up getting A healthy scratch last week, then moved to Philadelphia. And then Michael Carter II goes from the Jets to Philadelphia also. So they add a couple pieces in the secondary. They add Phillips as an edge rusher to what they're doing. And I look at that and I go, okay, Alexander is incredibly talented, Jair Alexander. He's a basket case in some ways, but he's super talented. So if you put him on a team that recently brought back Brandon Graham, who can, get in his face and say, yo, chill, that goes a long way. And Carter's a help in the secondary as well. So Kevin, when you look at Philadelphia and these moves that kind of went under the radar because of what Dallas did, and what the Jets did as far as unloading, I feel like these moves are actually really, really smart for Philadelphia to kind of solidify some things on the defensive side, which has not been good this year.
I agree with that. And it's kind of like, if you want to use a baseball analogy here, it's like there's guys that are on the free agent market and stuff, and nobody's doing anything, and all of a sudden the Dodgers sweep in and sign them. Then everybody's complaining about how the Dodgers always get the players. And so, as you mentioned, these guys could have been picked up for relatively cheap, but they did not do it. And then Philadelphia comes in, and if there's a problem, and you go into Philadelphia, they're not having that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a strong, situation. If any of these guys go in there and can't get it done, then their playing careers are in the ditch. And they have incentive, which is always a good thing. And, you never know. One of these guys might turn out to be Miguel Rojas and hit the home run in the 9th inning and take Philadelphia right back to where they expect to be. And so when you talk about front offices, Philadelphia, hats off to them. And I could never cheer for Philadelphia just like you, Brian, but
nope.
They figure out ways to get things done, and they did it here.
I want to apologize to any Blue Jays fans watching right now. And fresh wound, us pouring salt into that as well. All right, let's talk about the Jets. The Jets unloaded in a weird way. The Sauce Gardner, there was talked about this before the season, about Gardner getting moved. I still think it's weird, and it's just, you're a quarterback, and you're maybe 3 players away from being pretty solid over there in New York, and you just got rid of 2 really, really good players in Sauce Gardner and in Quinnen Williams. So Kevin, we'll start with you on this one. Reaction to the getting rid of Sauce, Quinnen Williams. They also, of course, let go of Michael Carter II, who we already discussed.
Well, when it comes to cornerbacks, and I heard this being discussed earlier today, when they're talking about most teams, they don't have a number 2 good cornerback. Some of them don't have a number 1.
Yeah.
And so what are the Jets doing? Because this is a quality guy here.
Yeah. And
you sell them off. I kind of understand why they might want to do, because they're going nowhere, obviously. And it's always interesting when the teams make this kind of move, because they're coming off a win. Yeah. And then, everybody in New York is kind of, hey, we finally got our win. And then so their consolation is everybody gets shipped out of town. And so Ryan, our colleague, would be a good guy to talk about this because he's a Jet guy. But I guess I kind of understand, but the Jets need to rebuild. But is this the way you want to go? I'm not too sure.
Well, and here's their method, right? They have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks in this coming draft. Then they have 3 first-round picks in 2027. So as far as the rebuild goes, well, you can do it a lot cheaper through the draft than you can through Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams.
That's true.
That sounds like someone got bored in Madden and just traded everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And as we all know, though, draft picks do not equal anything.
Right.
Until they turn out
the lottery tickets.
Quality. Yeah, it's just because you have a first round pick, as we all know, all our teams have multiple examples we can point to that were like
time you got.
Yeah. and so they have to turn these picks into quality players
Yes.
and to make this work at all. And you're not going to know that until they actually make the players, they draft them and we see where they go and how they do. So we'll see.
And Brian, they chose to hang on to Breece Hall and to Garrett Wilson. And Jermaine Johnson's still there too. It's not like they're defunct of talent. They just have some key positions that they've got to get right in the coming year or so. Your thoughts though, it makes sense they're rebuilding. What are your thoughts on their method?
Yeah, it makes total sense to rebuilding. I applaud them for getting 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, who he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's a great corner and all this stuff, but he's definitely taken a step back over the past couple of years. The metrics, the penalties have gone up and all that stuff. Same thing with Quinn Williams, a great player, but again, another guy taking a step back. So maybe trying to sell them while they're high and get all this draft capital back so they can reinvest it into younger players that hopefully they can develop. But again, that's the key word for the Jets. We've heard thousands of times how this player is going to be the savior. This player is going to be the savior. And they come to New York and they just don't develop them right, or they get something and it just doesn't happen. Kevin's the best example of this. Look at Sam Darnold. Got mono his second year and his development was thrown off completely. So that's the big thing is, can the Jets hire the right player development people so these draft picks can succeed?
Somebody on Twitter says, if you weren't with the Jets during the rebuild, don't be with us during the rebuild.
Which rebuild are you referring to?
Yeah, you have to be way more specific. Because the Jets, let's face it, the Jets have been rebuilding since Super Bowl III.
Yes.
Or 4. Whichever one that was.
I'm old enough to remember Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez taking them to the AFC title game in back-to-back seasons. So
we don't give Mark Sanchez enough credit for that. The fact that he went into New England, went into Indianapolis, and beat Brady and Peyton is crazy.
Yeah. And then they said, let's get rid of those guys and let's start.
Yeah, let's bring in a guy named Wilson as a quarterback. And, of course, it was all downhill from there. So
there were so many red flags with Zach Wilson, but we won't go
there.
There
were.
Dallas.
Okay.
Let's go to Dallas next. And, Brian, I want to start with you on this one, too. Off-season, they get rid of Micah Parsons. They get a decent haul for him. Then they say we need better run defense. So they get back Kenny Clark in that trade. Now they go out and they make the move for Quinnen Williams. They bring in Logan Wilson as well from Cincinnati. And, George Pickens in the offseason, the running backs, Javonte Williams in the offseason. Again, I look at Dallas and I go, man, they're really not that far away. And these, as much as I like to make fun of Jerry Jones, I actually kind of like what he did at this trade deadline. Brian, what do you think?
Oh, no, I actually really like what the Cowboys did, especially that the Logan Wilson trade, because think about it. Logan Wilson was at 100 tackle player just a couple seasons ago. Sure, he's fallen off a little bit, but for a 7th-round pick to get that kind of potential talent, it's a low-risk, really high-reward move for the Cowboys. And the Quinnen Williams is similar thing. Sure, he has fallen off the past few years, but, everyone in the Jets have fallen off across the board. So maybe a change of scenery, a new, a system fits him better. He's only 27 years old, so they got plenty of times. He's no Micah Parsons, but he's a pretty, good substitute for him. So I like what Dallas did. I don't know if it's enough to mask all the problems they have on defense. Secondary still scares me a lot, but I definitely like that front 7 better.
Well, and they use some of the capital that they have, not just for the draft. Look at the Jets and they got all these draft picks. Well, Dallas still has draft picks, but they were able to use some of those that they acquired or keep the ones they acquired and trade some of their own to still have a solid amount of draft picks, as well as players who have been there, done that in the NFL as well. Kevin, I know anytime there's a Wilson that gets moved, it gets your attention. So Logan to Dallas from Cincinnati and Quinnen Williams from New York.
Well, there's a joke that's got to be made right here, because anytime you're bringing in a Cincinnati defender, that's probably not a good scenario after they gave up 87 points in their last 2 games.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. But I got to really question. I know the trade deadline was today. I know this. But after they lost that game last night, Dallas' season's in the absolute toilet. And it doesn't matter what they bring in this year. The season's over for them. This is
Well,
the kind of move that they should have made earlier. We could go way back. Shouldn't have had to make a deal with Green Bay. They should have made sure they kept, DeMarcus Lawrence and not have him be flipping them off as he walks out of town, and go up to Seattle and he's playing solid football up there. And so if you don't get these guys out of town, then none of these moves are necessary. But they did. But they should have made these. Jerry Jones, sits on his hands until the lights are getting, there's almost no light left. And then he makes this move. It's not going to save the season. And so I would have liked to have, if you're a Cowboys guy, which is impossible. Okay. But these are moves I think should have been made earlier than today.
Well, Dallas they're 2 games out of the wild card. Like,
they might as well be 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just think that I'm just saying they're not out. Like, when you look at it, you got the Saints and the Giants out. Everybody else is still actually realistically in the hunt for a wild card spot. And they're not going to catch the Eagles. They're not going to win the division. But you don't have to win the division. You just got to make it into the playoffs. And there's been plenty of teams who have been the last one in to go and win the Super Bowl. And so when I look at it this way, I go, hey, I give them credit for keeping on. They've seen that the offense works. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but it works. If they can get the defense just to hold teams to 24 points or something like that, then they've got a chance, because they've been as bad on defense as almost anybody in the league, it seems like. And so I look at this for Dallas. I think they were good moves. I think they could have done more, and they might still do more. There's going to be potential for some, someone saying, I want out, cut me, and those kinds of things as well. So is it
a corner
likely?
or something?
No. What's that?
Being like a corner or a second or a safety or just someone who could stick back there and just hopefully, just tread water back there, because it's just pathetic.
Well, and maybe with these moves, the guys like wake up a little bit. Maybe they're like,
true.
oh, hey, we haven't mailed it in. Because when they traded Micah Parsons, there's probably a lot of guys that were like, well, we're just mailing this season in, I guess. And now they're going, oh, hold on a sec. No, we actually are trying. And so maybe they'll wake up. I don't know that that's the case.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If this had been made earlier, then
but you are also limited. It's a two.
I know that. So I would at least have tried to do this, because they were right there, but they lost their last 2 games in an embarrassing fashion.
Yeah, they did.
And so they were averaging 40 points a game at home. Didn't do it yesterday.
Yeah.
Against a team that had lost 5 straight.
Yeah.
So, this is a little too late, for me, that I have no confidence in the Cowboys whatsoever.
That's fair. Last thing I want to hit on this is reports are the Packers are meeting with Asante Samuel Jr. and with intentions to sign him if everything goes well. Packers are in desperate need of cornerback help, and he just got cleared by the NFL, medically cleared by the NFL this week. So to me, this is a low risk, high reward opportunity for any team that needs a cornerback, a player at this talent. Yes, he's coming off an injury, so you don't know exactly what you're getting, and a pretty serious injury too. So you're not sure what you're getting out of him, but I like the idea as a Packer fan. I love the idea. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and that kind of move right now. They don't make a move in the trade deadline. Maybe there is something brewing though, Brian.
Yeah, especially because we don't know like what the cornerback price was. I mean, we just saw Sauce Gardner got moved for 2 first-round picks, so that kind of set the market for corners. So corners are going to be at a luxury. So might as well go out and get this, guy that basically just has to spend cap space on, and hopefully shows up in good shape, is rehab well, and can make somewhat of an impact for you.
I like it. All right. Anything else we want to discuss?
Oh, let's see here. Unfortunately for you, we should mention some things like Tucker Kraft.
Oh yeah,
going down, which is really unfortunate for you and for me, because I had him as my number 1 tight end.
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate. Jaden Daniels dislocated his. This is
Speaking of team, because Washington's out of it too in the NFC.
Washington's out of this. Okay. And I've heard two different things being said. Should Jaden Daniels have been in that game when it was 38-7?
No.
I'm just going to float the question out there, whoever wants to answer.
I don't think so. A franchise guy at like this point in the season, like just take him out. So that doesn't happen.
Now, but here, and listen, we got to be really careful with these comparisons, but Peyton Manning's not coming out. Tom Brady's not coming out. Brett Favre's not coming out. I go back and forth on. I mean, you can always look back on it and say, "Oh, he shouldn't have been in there because he got hurt." At the end of the day, you're playing in the NFL. Like, if it was something where he was like gutting it out, then yeah, you take him out. But if he's not gutting it out, it's not like Marcus Mariota needs the reps. So to me, I don't put blame on Dan Quinn for him being in there. I wouldn't have blamed him if he pulled him out either. But to me, that conversation is more of an ESPN conversation because they know they're going to get people to listen and argue with them.
Right. And I totally get that. And it seems like because the Seahawks in that same game pulled Sam Darnold out, but they were winning.
Yeah.
That's what teams do. If you're losing, you don't pull your starters.
Right.
Kind of league wide. And so I was really surprised when Dan Quinn came out and he took responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was quite necessary. And so that was just one of the things that was going on.
My argument always goes back to Favre and Manning because I'm a Tennessee fan, so I was a fan of Manning's, and I'm a Packer fan, so I'm a fan of Favre. Both of them have said, like, I'm not. I mean, you've seen Manning, the coach start telling the backup to get ready, and Manning just runs back out on the field because he's like, no, I'm not missing this snap. And Favre, his deal was if I'm out, the next guy might take my job. And and that's not going to be the case for Jaden Daniels.
No.
But yeah, and it wasn't the case for Favre either, honestly, or Manning for that matter, or Brady for that matter. But yeah, that's where I kind of look at it and go, it's really just a flip of the coin. And only if someone gets hurt do you ever say he shouldn't have been in there. If he doesn't get hurt, nobody cares, right?
Right. Nobody's talking about this, and so I thought it was overblown.
Yeah.
And so I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. I hate it for him. I'm glad they said that everything.
Yes, I hate it for him. That's a guy that's ultra. This dude took his team all the way to the NFC title game a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know that Brian's upset that he's going to miss time as well because they might lose some games and it might hurt the Giants draft order and all that stuff too. But yeah, thankfully the X-rays came back negative, and so it could have been much worse. It looked horrendous.
Oh God!
But it could have been much worse than that.
So that's the first thing I saw when I woke up in the morning because I was at the Giant game Sunday, so I didn't watch the game.
Yeah.
I pulled my phone up, and that's the first video I see. I'm like, well, that's a great that's a great omen for today.
Right.
A great start to the day. All right, that's the cover two. Let's head into our read option. All right, for our read option, we're doing starts and sits. And so we're going to do it a little differently than we've done so far this year. We're going to do it by kickoff. And so I'll start us off with Thursday with the Broncos and the Raiders. 4 starts for you in this game. Cortland Sutton is my first start for Denver. Sutton has a 92% route participation number and a 24% target share. And he's going up against the Raiders that are really not that great. I'm also starting J.K. Dobbins this week, and I was really looking at the Denver running back situation. But again, against the Raiders, Dobbins is 57.6% rush share, 5.1 yards per carry this year for J.K. Dobbins. So he's a start also. I'm also starting Ashton Genty. It's not really been that pretty for him as of late, but he's still got the heavy 70% run share on there. And then I'm also starting Brock Bowers, the tight end. He showed so much of why he is who he is. last week. He continues to be the guy in Vegas. I'm sitting a couple of guys. I'm sitting Troy Franklin down there in Denver. His numbers have looked good. I think even he was a start not that long ago for you, Kevin, if I remember right, as well. But sorry, I lost my notes. Lower efficiency in his numbers, and his volume isn't that great at this point either. RJ Harvey, same way. I considered him, but just not going to work out there. And then the other one is Trey Tucker in Vegas. You got the move wide receiver from Jacoby Myers. Does that mean he gets a lot more targets? Probably not. It means Bowers gets more targets and not Tucker. So I'm benching Franklin, Harvey, and Tucker, starting Sutton, Dobbins, Genty, and Bowers this week on the Thursday night game. All right, Brian, you're taking the early kickoffs on Sunday. We have a Berlin kickoff, and then we also have the rest of the 1 o'clock kickoffs as well. Who are you starting and sitting this week?
So I'm starting Justin Jefferson. That Ravens secondary is very battered and banged up. It struggled all season. It's about 250 yards per game. I know we've got concerns with McCarthy, but he looked pretty good on Sunday, so I think Jefferson's going to have himself a big game. I'm also starting the Browns defense. The Browns defense is top 10 in both passing and run defense this year. We saw the Jets trade away their team. So we saw the Jets trade a lot of key pieces. So that affects locker room. Morale's going to be low. I think the Browns go to MetLife and just roll over the Jets. That defense has a big game. And then Rico Dowell, that Saints defense has started the 9th most rushing yards in the league. And while they have an average secondary, so I expect the Panthers to look to more run the ball rather than throw the ball. My sits, Jalen Waddle, the Bills secondary is one of the best in the league, only 169 yards allowed per game, second fewest in the NFL. How can you trust Tua Tagovailoa at this point? I stay away from Waddle. And then my final one is Trevor Lawrence, going up against a great Texans defense, allowing only 177 passing yards per game and 276 yards, is the fewest in the NFL. I think the Jaguars, even if Myers plays, will have a very hard time moving the football on Sunday.
I like it. All right, later kickoffs, including Sunday Night Football. Kevin Wilson, who you got?
Okay, so I'm going to start Kamini Vidal of the LA Chargers. This is what he's done: 124 yards, 20, 117, and then 30. So if we go this by pattern, he should have over 100 yards this week, going up against Pittsburgh, and they're not in the top 10 defense. Then I'm going to start Sam Laporta of Detroit, and he's going up against Washington, number 24, against tight ends. Look for a touchdown out of him this week. You want him in your lineup. And we talked about Rashid Shaheed. If he is on the squad as starting for the Seahawks this week, then you want him in your lineup because Arizona is number 21 against wide receivers. If he's not playing, and then Torrey Horton, slide him into this spot and get him into your lineup. So either way, you want a Seattle wide receiver right here starting against Arizona. My sits, Blake Corum, we're talking of the Rams, had 58 yards against New Orleans, which is fine, but he's going up, and he's got Kareem Williams ahead of him, and he's going up against, I've got it right here. You don't want him to be starting. It's a solid defense. You don't want that. Chris Rodriguez had a nice game, such that it was, against the Seahawks, but he's got the Lions have the number 3 defense against running backs in fantasy. You don't want that. Then Amari DiMarcado, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, had a nice game, 79 yards against Dallas, but we talked about anything you're going to do against Dallas does not count. And so Seattle is the number 1 rushing defense in football. You do not want him in your lineup this week, so resist any temptations. Keep him far away.
All right, and then let's wrap it up with Monday Night Football. Eagles at Green Bay, which I think is why the Panthers won this week, but nonetheless, it's a whole nother conversation. I'm starting Josh Jacobs. He's splitting a lot of carries. He's at 57% right now carries, which I don't love, but 10 rushing touchdowns. The Eagles' run defense has been allowing 4.05 yards per carry, so I like Josh Jacobs. Saquon Barkley, I'm also starting. He's at 5.9 yards per carry, and he has a 73% catch rate as well. So even though Green Bay's run defense has been good, although Dowdle carved him up last week, there is opportunity still for Saquon to have a really good game. I'm also starting Devontae Smith, wide receiver in Philadelphia. And right along with it, Romeo Doubs for Green Bay as well. Both of these guys are high volume and efficiency receivers. Smith has a 13% target share, a 79.5% catch rate, and Romeo Doubs has a 20% target share, and he has a big red zone role as well. And you throw that into the injury of Tucker Kraft, it's going to help Romeo Doubs. Jordan Love trusts him. He's throwing balls to Doubs when he's not throwing it to other guys. It's working out pretty well. I am benching Dallas Goedert, tight end, in Philadelphia. The targets just aren't there. I don't love it. He has some good games, but I don't like it this week against Green Bay. I'm also benching Tank Bigsby, who had a nice showing for Philadelphia, but I'm all in on Saquon. I'm out on Tank this week. And the last one is Luke Musgrave. A lot of people are going to jump on the Luke Musgrave train because, well, Tucker Kraft is out, so the new tight end comes in. He'll just fill his spot, right? No, he won't. Tucker Kraft was a unique talent, incredible talent. And Musgrave is fine. He's going to get some catches, but he's probably going to get 3 catches and 30-something yards versus the 4 catches for 80-something yards that we saw from Tucker Kraft. So I'm benching Luke Musgrave as well on Monday night. But I'm looking forward to that game, guys. Philadelphia Green Bay is going to be a fun one. It's going to be an important one come playoff time as well, whoever gets the win there. All right, that's it for our start sits. From there, let's go into our red zone. All right, for our red zone, this is our waiver wire ads section. Kevin, who you think we should add this week?
Okay, so first I'm going to go with Alec Pierce of Indianapolis, who caught 6 of 13 balls for 115 yards against Pittsburgh. He has 10-plus targets in his last 2 games. He's at 11.8% and has Atlanta this week. And Atlanta, you just don't know who's going to show up, where they're going to show up. And so I really like him going forward on that team. So he's at the top of my list of players to go and get this week.
All right, Brian, who do you like?
I like Demario Douglas in New England. Kayshon Boutte status for Sunday is unknown at this point, and when we saw him last week, 4 catch on six targets for 100 yards. If Boutte's out, Drake May is going to need that guy next to Stephon Diggs, and sure, Henry might get some looks, but I think Douglas can carve out a very nice showing, especially if this trend continues with 6 targets.
I like it. I like tight end Colson Loveland. I think his role is starting to grow in Chicago. Since the bye week in week 5, he's grown his targets each week. Last week against Cincinnati, I know it was Cincinnati, kind of like against Dallas, like Kevin would say, it doesn't count. But 7 targets, he had 6 catches, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's going up against the Giants this week. And again, that's just an offense that seems like it's finally starting to click a little bit. And so I like Colson Loveland. I loved him at the beginning of the season, did not work out. But I like him where he's at right now in midseason in the NFL too. All right, Kevin, who else you got?
Okay, so I got Dalton Schultz, Houston tight end, at 20.7% rostered. Caught 6 of 8 balls against Denver. We know how tough a defense that they have. Well, this week, fortunately for him, they've got Jacksonville up next, and you know where they rank? Number 31 against tight ends. So if you're needing a tight end, which I do, as we mentioned earlier, because I had Tucker Kraft. So this is a guy that if you need a tight end, goes way high on my list. Go get him.
I like it. Brian, you got somebody else?
Yeah, I'm also going with Parker Washington. I know Jacoby Myers does hurt like the amount of volume he's going to get, but he's had 19 targets these past 2 games, averaging almost 13 yards a catch in the last 3. If you could just find the end zone, he can start putting up some monster numbers soon. So again, don't know with Myers. It might change things a little bit, but it's definitely worth taking a flyer on, especially if he's going to continue to get some decent work like that.
I like it. I think there's tight ends to get guys. I think Luke Musgrave is not the worst option in Green Bay. I don't think this week's a good one for Philadelphia, but it's not a horrible option. They are going to throw to the tight end. Elijah Arroyo is still available in a lot of places as well. He had a double-digit week, only 2 catches, but he got the tight end last week against Washington as well. We've talked about Theo Johnson before. There are options out there, needless to say. If you need a tight end, just go do a little research and look at the matchups, play the matchups this week on that. Kevin, anybody else you want to discuss?
All right. So I'm going to bring up your guy, Brian, Darius Slayton, New York Giants wide receiver. Okay. He's at 14.9% rostered, 5 of 7, 62 yards against San Francisco. Well, he's got Chicago up next, and they're 28th versus wide receiver. So if you're needing wide receiver help, I would look in his direction and make a move on him.
All right, Brian, anybody else from you?
I'll go with the easy one. If you got a quarterback problem, I would go take a flyer on Jacoby Brissett. You just had to see some kind of chemistry with Harrison and Bride last game on Monday. So I know it's against Dallas. It doesn't count, but it's worth a shot, especially if he plays well against Seattle this week. We know that ownership is going to have a big spike. So get in on it before it goes through the roof.
I like it. I like it for sure. I got nobody else. Anybody? You guys have anybody else you want to discuss?
I'm good.
Well, that's pretty good.
All right. Let's hit in then to our final segment. We call it Beat the Bot. Every week we challenge RotoBot AI in a competition to see who will score the most in a certain category, whatever it may be. And this segment is presented by RotoBot AI, which is a fantasy football platform equipping users to make decisions faster and smarter. RotoBot AI is able to recognize each user's unique scenario and tailor roster advice based on that. So sit starts, trades, waiver wires, all kinds of analytics to go right along with it. And again, you can attach it directly to your fantasy roster, so it gives you specific advice tailored to you. Download the RotoBot AI app and use the code BELLYUP. You will receive 1 free week access to RotoBot, a great opportunity for you to check it out, play around with it a good bit, see what all the tools are that are there, and then let us know what you think about it as well. RotoBot AI, download the app, use the code BELLYUP for 1 free week. All right, so last week, Brian was not on the program. He gets an automatic loss. We could have just put him on the IR, but then he would have to be out for 4 weeks. We didn't want to do that. So, so he was not here last week. But we did highest scoring sophomore quarterbacks. Me and Kevin both went with Caleb Williams. The bot went with Jaden Daniels. Obviously, the Daniels injury did not help out the bot. But even before that, it wasn't going well for the bot either. Caleb Williams was the highest scoring sophomore quarterback. I had the closer score, so I'm taking the win this week, Kevin. I know you think we should both.
Come on, I'm getting kind of wrestled to the ground. I should have more than one win. Okay.
Well, we have it according to the official stats. Me and Kevin are at 1-8. Brian has 3 wins this season. The bot has 4 wins this season. So still beating us technically, all of us, but nonetheless. Well, actually, I guess we're technically as a group beating the bot. We are at 5 wins. They're at 4 wins. So in that case, Kevin, we are all winners. There are no losers.
Okay. I like the sound of that.
I hate that, but nonetheless. All right, here we go. Highest scoring wide receiver this week is the competition we're doing this week against the bot. RotoBot AI says it's Justin Jefferson this week. Pretty good matchup for Jefferson. Looked good last week with the return of J.J. McCarthy, who, by the way, overhyped. He only had 18 fantasy points. J.J. McCarthy did. Get off it. He's not that great. But anyways, Justin Jefferson still looked good, and that's who the bot's going with this week. I'm going to go a little bit on a flyer on this one, coming off the bye week and several not great weeks before that. I'm going back to Emeka Egbuka this week. I like his matchup as well in Tampa. They had that bye week. Get him a chance to get a little bit rested and recovered and come out firing off the bye. So I'm going with Emeka Egbuka as the highest scoring receiver this week. Kevin, who do you have?
All right. So, as I mentioned, Washington is number 26 against wide receiver. So, I'm going with Ross St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of guys that we could have picked right here. And so, I was waiting to see who the Robo picked. And I didn't want to go that same direction. So, I'm going Amon-Ra St. Brown as my selection.
I like it. All right. And for you, Brian, who are you going with?
Kevin just stole my pick on Mara, so I'm gonna take a flyer on this player. He's had a strong week last week. Give me Drake London. I think it continues. Why not?
What a great pick in Germany. I was gonna go there, but I don't know how that's gonna play in Germany. So,
well, I will tell you, here was my concern. I was gonna go Drake London also, and then I thought, okay, but Sauce Gardner's probably gonna play. He'll probably be covering Drake London because there's no one else to cover other than Kyle Pitts. And so I got scared off of it. I was a little bit too big of a sissy on this one. But I like the pick nonetheless. I also looked at JSN. I thought that was.
I did as well. I did as well.
Yeah, too. Yep.
No. So there we go. I like all the options, guys. Good job. Great job. All right, let's talk about what we got going on this week. Both of you guys had great articles this week out on the bellyupsports.com website. Thank you for that. Kevin, what do you get going on this week?
Well, so you can go back and yesterday we put out our review of the Seahawks game on Sunday night against Washington. We did that last night. It's on out there. And Friday night we will review or preview this coming game against Arizona this weekend. So you can check that out. And so you can always go to the BS, I guess is what you call his channel over there. But
that's exactly what I call his channel.
Okay. So I will discuss that no further. But so check that out, and there will be an article. And Brian, I just need to know what start and sit article do you want to do this week?
Oh, either one's fine with me. I don't care.
Okay. I'll do Thursday then.
Okay, fine with me.
Okay, so you can expect an article come out tomorrow or Thursday morning about that, and you never know what might pop out when I sit down and come up with something.
There you go. All right. I'm trying to find his actual page. I apologize. I should have known this coming into it. Actually, Kevin, you should know this since you're on the show. But I'll find that as Brian talks about.
It's called Seahawks Session, so just check that out.
There you go.
New 3rd and 10 episode out today. We broke down Giants 49ers. More painful one since I was actually in the building. So first-hand experience to the misery. But that's coming out on Thursday. We'll break down the Bears game as always, as well as best bets. I will have an article about the Notre Dame Boston College matchup out at some point tomorrow. Okay. Life happens. I know I like to get those out on Wednesday. Life happens. We pushed it back to Wednesday. So a lot of good stuff happening. As always, you can find all my work at BrianPG1016 on Twitter.
I like it. My show is the Sports Stove Football Show every Thursday. We've been doing it pretty early in the evening, but my son's basketball season starts on Thursday, so it's getting pushed back a little bit. We'll probably go live about the same time as the NFL game kicks off as well, but it'll always be available at the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel afterwards and the Sports Stove Football Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast. I've been doing special draft episodes for the 2026 draft, previewing position groups. Have most of them out there on the Sports Stove YouTube channel and as well on the podcast. And then this week, the goal is to put out a 2026 midseason mock draft. So now we've got the trades deadline done, and we kind of know where. We don't know the draft order, but we get a better idea of who's drafting where. We'll be dropping a mock draft coming up this week as well. And you can find all that on my socials at Sports Stove is the socials. To find that. Follow Belly Up Fantasy at Belly Up Fantasy on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Belly Up Sports at Belly Up Sports on Twitter and Instagram as well. Don't forget about RotoBot AI. Check it out. It's a free week. Why not? Get signed up. RotoBot AI. Use the code BELLYUP to get a free week access to RotoBot AI as well. All right, gents, thanks for a great show. We'll be back next week with more fantasy football. Week number 11. Won't be long. We'll be talking playoff strategy.
Right.
It's just nuts.
Crazy.
Nonetheless, we are there. Real quick before we sign off, and I should have had this pulled up real quick, but we've got a league, Belly Up Fantasy or the Belly Up Sports Fantasy Football League.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss this
every year, and that means that's exactly why we need to discuss this, Kevin. All right, just to give a shout out to a couple of guys real quick. Chris Prince and Brian Germinaro are tied for first place in the league. Chris is our NASCAR guru at Belly Up Sports, and of course Brian, Daniel Jones Ruins Football is his team name, which is incredible. They're leading the pack at 7-2. Then myself, Nathan Nguyen, and Kev are lined up next at 5-4. Another Danny Dimes baby is Nathan's name. So we got a few Daniel Jones in our leagues. Then after that, it's a big tie for 4 and 5. Antonio Perez from Sideline Summit, Hector Flores from Insert Name FC. He doesn't have his first name written down. What's Henry's name? Kevin, your co-host on this.
Dustin.
Dustin, thank you. Dustin Henry. They're from the what's No Credentials Required podcast.
Correct.
Sorry, guys. Kelsey Cohen is there also at 4 and 5, and Blaine, our co-founder at Belly Up Sports at 4 and 5. Then Kevin Wilson at 3 and 6, and DJ Stewart rounding us out at the bottom at 2 and 7. Still time, Kevin. You're like the Cowboys. It might be looking bad, but there is still a chance for that wild.
And I took you mentioned Chris Prince. I took him right down to the wire.
Yeah.
This past week. So
well, you know what they say, close only counts, and
that's right. Hand grenades and nuclear weapons.
All right, guys.
I haven't heard nuclear weapons, but I guess you are right.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this week to the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show. We'll see you next week. Have fun this week.
Have a great week.